Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. As usual, I stayed up way too late, got up way too early, and looked like a crazy person. To be fair, even if I had enough sleep, I still look like a crazy person. So, this is Sunday Comics. We're going to continue with the X-Men run. I realized that I started a Star Wars run and I never finished it, so maybe we'll get back to that. How you guys doing? How's your weekend? It's funny, man. I kicked a hornet's nest. I got into like a Twitter fight, but this is the kind of Twitter fight I actually enjoy. I people, I are talking about Emma Frost, and I just said, I don't know why people are just loving this character. I mean, I can understand loving the character. I love Doctor Doom, love like a lot of villainous characters. I know I kind of fascinated with the Dread Dormammu, but like to like actively like think like, oh, this is a great character, we should do this, like what do the kids say, Stan, that they're champion this character. But the White Queen is a horrible uh person. Not a It's a great character, great villain, but she started out as a sex slaver. you know uh Chris Claremont wore his inspirations on his nose. When pinball was big, he created arcade. When he was reading all the witchy stuff, everybody became witches. You know, he it's not too difficult to see what Chris Claremont was reading or watching in the news, because 3 months later, uh, it's in the comics, and the Hellfire Club was a sex club. Okay, it, I think I established that in the past couple of days. The White Queen was the headmistress of an elite school in Massachusetts. At the time, there was a private school for girls in Rhode Island, where the coach was involved with a lot of the female students, over 31 girls. In England, it was one of the schools there, a private school. The girls were dating, we're talking 14, 15, 16-year-old girls were dating Jimmy Page, David Bowie, Mick Jagger. With the school was letting these rock stars come to their dances and stuff like that. This was big news back in the 70s. We forget about this now. Geez, 40, 50 years later, but this was in the news. So we have a sex club, a world dominating, murdering, kidnapping, extortion, blackmail group. Mutants are just what put it in the comic book, And then one of their lead royalty, White Queen, one of their bigwigs, runs a school. And even last issue, she says, I don't have it with me right now, I put it away, but last issue, Emma Watson says, I want to recruit Kitty Pryde. She goes, I'll put her in my elite Massachusetts Academy. And then Sebastian Shaw replies, good, then we can have access to her whenever we want, or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact words. White Queen was, Sebastian Shaw was the Jeffrey Epstein. White Queen was Ghislaine Maxwell of Marvel Comics. It's eerily how much Chris Claremont and John Byrne, because you got to give John Byrne, co-writer, credit, predicted and foreshadowed what we now know today. I think at some extent we all knew what was going on, but those people were labeled crazy conspiracy people. So I just have to laugh. And one guy told me that, what do I know? I'm a poser. I don't know comics. I had Jim Shooter come on my channel and say Chris Claremont was into freaky weird things. We got this Comics Code authority on it, so you have to skirt the issues. But they were bad people, guys. And then people discover the X-Men through Marvel Rivals, which is great. They see White Queen being all sexy and cool and whatever, and then they love the character and they have no idea what her past is. But I just love when people tell me, I don't know what I'm talking about, I've never read comic books, whatever. That's funny. That's just funny to me, But I just laugh. So I thought I would filibuster a bit, and then we'll talk about the comic. And first and foremost, let's go down the chat. So first we got Brittany Lane. How you doing, Brittany? Brittany is working over there at Fox Prowl Comics, upstate New York. How you doing, Fox Prowl? How you doing, Brittany? How you doing? How you doing, Ron? How's everybody? How's your family? What's going on? There's a wave. As I choked to death on coffee. Jeez, I did the same exact thing last night. We got Ben Samar, voice actor. How you doing, Ben? Good to see you. Good to see you. We also got me, John's Long Box. You can still get Heroic Tales 1 and 2 over there on Fund My Comic. I had 2 sales this week. It's been flatlined for a while, and 2 sales this week. We're prepping up for another campaign launch. We're gonna be launching King. Well, it's called the Christmas Special. Long Box Christmas Special, featuring King Fu and then the Patriarch's family. What they do. The Patriarch story is a 6-page short story because I just in good conscience couldn't sell a 16-page comic book. So I added a 6-page short story. There's going to be 2 covers. You know, I still say it's the best. You know, the price is going to be $10. That's the lowest I can go, even though it's smaller than the other ones. I hope everybody forgives me. Hope everybody understands. Page rates are going up. Coloring rates are going up. Price of printing's going up. I'm sure everybody understands. I'm trying to make comics as affordable as possible for me. The economy of scale is what it is. But anyway, I just like this story, that this 6-page story. It explains why Santa doesn't come to everybody's house. No, not because they're Hindu or Jewish or whatever, because certain conditions need to be done for Santa to come in. Yeah, I like the story. I like the story. I'm fascinated with Santa Claus. I'm fascinated with Christmas. St. Nicholas is one of my favorite historical characters. Santa Claus is one of my favorite mythological characters. How do you say it? What's the best way to say it? But anyway, I think you like it. I think you like it. And I got an amazing add-on. Oh my God. I got an amazing add-on. It's going to be a streamlined, fast campaign. Get the comic in your hands by Christmas. Renzo has 16 pages. He's already 5 pages into it. I'm waiting for him to do the cover. And then I got a new artist, Andres. I forget his last name. He's doing one. He's only got 6 pages. Well, he's got 7 pages to draw, including the cover. So he's doing the first page. As soon as the first page is colored for the backup story and the cover for the backup story, along with the 5 pages and the cover for the King Fu, we're launching the campaign. It's got to be fast, and it's going to be streamlined. So only 1 add-on, no stretch goals. You know what I mean? It's just an experiment. How fast can I'm trying to prove a point. I conceived, drew. Well, I didn't draw, but you know what I'm saying. Produced a comic book as fast as possible, and a quality comic, not just vomited out stuff. You know what I mean? You've seen some of the pages. I put them on Twitter. I should post a couple of pages on the YouTube posts, because that's not fair. There's a couple of people watch me don't follow Twitter. Gotta be fair. But anyway, it's so good. It's so good. I am having a blessed day. I woke up. I'm talking about comic books. The coffee is kicking in. You can see already I'm getting the caffeine jitters. Hell, everybody, let's drink some coffee. I got some serious gourmet shit. Forgive the little kids over there at Fox Prowl Comics. That was my one and only curse. I apologize. Always sharing your hot takes on Twitter. You'll never learn. It's now. There comes. First off, Brittany, how you doing again? Hello at Fox Prowl. When it comes to comic book hot takes, that's just fun. Brittany, you're like the only person I know in real life now who still works in a comic book store. So that's cool. That's great. Like, do people still come in and argue comics? Do they like, oh man, Spider-Man could beat Batman and Batman could beat up Archie, and Archie, can get more girls than Bruce Wayne and stuff. Yeah, I love that stuff. So talking about the White Queen on Twitter is fun for me. I don't get emotionally invested. I'm not angry at anybody. It's just fun, nerd, comic book trash talk. I don't know about the other people. I mean, they're blocking me left or right, but that's on them. That's not on me. It's fun. And the political stuff, factional stuff with it. That I do post political stuff. Maybe I shouldn't, but like factional stuff, I'm just ignoring. And you know what I'm talking about. And Dave Brink stuff, I will always share. Dave Brink went to his. He did really good at a comic convention in person. Oh man, I'm proud of you, Dave. You're doing the right thing. This is a guy who's doing it all the right way, making great comics. Great guy. He's hosting people. He's promoting other people. Dave Brink is the gold standard in this sphere. Let's pump up those numbers. Let's pump up those Dave Brink genuine comic numbers. Hey, once was cool. You're still cool. You're always cool. Once you were cool, you're still cool. Fam's great. Foxpal's great. Thanks for the shout. You got it. RJ Williams is here before the end of the stream. Everybody, write this thing down. Usually, RJ Williams of Call Sign Orion. Everybody check out Call Sign Orion. Go to Fund My Comic. Check out Call Sign Orion. But usually when RJ shows up, it means I have to go. So I don't know what's going on, but he's here at the beginning of the stream. Good job. John Bryce, shout out. Did they ever establish why the Hellfire Club members like to dress like 18th century aristocrats? Yeah, I'll finish going over this. I'm going to talk about this cover and talk about some Hellfire Club nonsense. So we'll get to that. I love hot takes. Yes, they do. That's why I play your lives when I'm running the store on Sundays. Okay, cool. Do you play like my interviews? Like after this, you're gonna go and play other people? I try to keep the cursing down, but I can't control other people. You got it. Love a Drink with Brink. There's another guy. Check out David Brink's YouTube channel, Genuine Comics, and he on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He has a drink with Brink. I've been a guest on that. Okay, so I'm all caught up. Some people are here. So let's talk about what John Bryce Shadowheart just said. So this is the full reveal of the on the cover of the Hellfire Club. So. Man, I didn't even think of it. I'm so mad. But I'm just going to turn this camera off for a second. I'm going to remove this camera for a second. And I'm going to do this. And I will... there was a TV show. Okay. Show... Okay, so I'm just Googling something. Now, if I was smart, I would have thought of this earlier, but I'm not smart. Okay, so why can't I? Okay, well, I'll take this image. All right, so where are we? Where did StreamYard go? Okay. Oh, that's not what I wanted to show. Share the screen. Yes, this is what I wanted to show. So, does anybody remember the Avengers, the TV show from the 60s with Emma Peel? Well, this is an episode called The Hellfire Club. And Chris Claremont admitted it. John Byrne admitted it. But the concept for the Hellfire Club was taken from this episode. That's Emma Peel dressed in the sexy dominatrix outfit, where they infiltrate a sex club. And the sex club, they like to dress like 18th century aristocrats because they draw their inspiration from the Illuminati and all that. And, crimes and hijinks ensue. And Emma Peel, normally she wears that super sexy cat leather outfit that looks like a Catwoman outfit. And she goes into the infiltrates and, becomes like one of the leaders. And they all dress like this. They're all cosplaying as rich aristocrats. Why? Because the whole, and keep in mind, this was the late 50s, early 30s, late 50s, early 60s. I forget exactly when it debuted. But they were an elite sex club that played at being aristocratic people, back in the times of slavery. And they were the overlords and everything like that. And Chris Claremont and John Byrne liked the imagery. Comic books have to have some good pageantry and everything like that. And they swiped it whole cloth. They swiped Emma Peel's outfit. They took the name from Emma Peel, the character, and made it Emma Frost. And you see that character I'm going to point to the screen like you can see my arm, but on the left in the bluish gray with his arm around the woman in the gold, that's I forget the character's name, but the actor's name is Peter Wyngarde. Okay, Jason Wyngarde is the Black Bishop, mastermind, the one who's messing with Jean Grey. Now, he was the one of the main characters in this episode, one of the evil characters, and Peter Wyngarde was a controversial character in himself. If you look him up, he was a proponent of, how do I say this, with Fox Prowl customers walking in and out of the store? Lack of consent for women for things that he wanted to do to them, okay? He actually wrote a book called Rape. That was the name of his book. It explained his philosophy of how you deal with women, what they're for. He was actually arrested for sexual assault charges. He was not a good guy. And, he's basically playing a guy like himself in the Hellfire Club episode of the Avengers that gave us everything about the Hellfire Club. Remember, the Hellfire Club was a real legendary thing that came and went. There's always pretenders to we are the real Hellfire Club, but it was a Illuminati style sex club for the rich elite that trafficked in bad things. It really did exist at certain points. You know what I mean? And Chris Claremont wore his influences on his sleeve. Keep in mind, who Jason Wyngarde is based on Peter Wyngarde. What a coincidence. And Emma Peel inspired not only the Black Queen, but the White Queen. So there you go. These are the inspirations for the Hellfire Club. Chris Claremont, it's not a secret. Claremont said it. John Byrne said it. Jim Shooter said it. So what do you want me to do? Okay, I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to add that, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that. So now we're back to normal. So now this character right here over here is Jason Wyngarde, based on Peter Wyngarde. This is Harry Leland. I don't think he's ever been given a superhero name. He's based on Orson Welles. I got no problems with Orson Welles. Genius. They should have named him Rosebud. This is Sebastian Shaw, the leader, the Black King, the Jeffrey Epstein of the Marvel Universe. The character, the physical looks is based on Robert Shaw. If you might know him best as I can't think of the character's name, Quinn from Jaws. So that actor, and this is why can't I think of the character's name? But he's based on Donald Sutherland, just the looks. I don't think there's any bad stuff about Donald Sutherland. Characters got to look like something, but they were big on using images of people. So Sebastian Shaw is based on Robert Shaw. Leland is based on Orson Welles. Jason Wyngarde is based on Peter Wyngarde, and anybody remember the name of this character? But the actor's name is Donald Sutherland. That's the and Emma Frost is based on Emma Peel as wearing a black outfit, White Queen. They're not good. They're not good people. And keep in mind, this was within the Comics Code Authority. So they had to walk a tight line. So this, to me, is one of the most extreme boundary-pushing stories ever in a comic book that was approved by the Comics Code Authority. They danced a fine line. You have to be subtle. When I was a kid, I knew they were up to really shady things. And I kind of knew it was, back then I would have just said they were into pervy stuff. But I didn't realize just how deep the pervy stuff went. And then when I reread it in the 90s, I realized it was like going to Dante's Inferno. You go deeper into the circle, you realize, oh, okay. and then you get, and then when you start reading, like last issue, Emma P, like Storm is all groggy, she's all roofied, there's no other way to describe it, and she's like, they searched us to the skin. She didn't just say they searched us. Claremont is a great writer. He put in these words to suggest things and get around the Comics Code Authority. They humiliated them. They sexually humiliated them, roofied them, put them in cages. They and then when the illusion, when Wingard projects the illusion, Storm is dressed as a black slave girl in colonial times. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how people and Emma Frost tortures them. She's grooming Kitty Pryde, and then she casually murders her henchmen when they fail. She's not a. At what point is a character irredeemable? It's supposed to be a comic book, supposed to be good versus the evil. Like, do we have a character that blows up bombs in New York City, knocks down the Twin Towers, kills 3,000 people, and then 20 years later, oh, he's redeemed. He's a good guy. Like, is anybody? If Red Skull, could Red Skull be a good guy? Like Doctor Doom? Doctor Doom is plotting. He's not a good guy. He's got a scheme. Emma Frost is mental power. She's using that. That's one of the things she does. She uses her sexuality, her good looks, her connections, her wealth. And, didn't she kill her father in her origin? You know what I mean? Is it beyond the pale to say that she's manipulating everybody? Oh, man, I would love to write the X-Men. Just give White Queen. Like, and now she's the champion of Segregation Island. Da, da, da. Yeah. And there we go. Okay, so let's get to. So does that answer your question? I don't want to say John Bry. Does that answer your question? Okay. Donald Pierce. Yes, you see, Donald Pierce. He's named after Donald Sutherland. And I'm trying to think of the name Pierce. Is that something? But Donald Sutherland is Donald Pierce. Donald Pierce, the Triple X-Men. I think there's a porn parody. I don't think he had a supervillain name, which is a shame. Yeah. Yep. Ex-euphemism. Yeah, these aren't go-go clubs, ladies and gentlemen. These aren't go-go clubs. I hear the Red Skull is the mayor of New York now. That's funny. It's a good thing I didn't have a mouthful. If Emma Frost ran for mayor, she'd be elected. Yeah, well, first off, she'd mentally control everybody and take over, Jesus can redeem anyone, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve the death penalty. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Okay, so looks like we got an engaged audience. From this point forward, I'll talk about the comic, and then address the chat. Yeah, some characters can only be redeemed through a heroic, permanent, sacrificial death. I'm not saying that White Queen can't be redeemed, Red Skull can't be redeemed, Doctor Doom can't be redeemed. Doctor Doom cannot be redeemed. He has done some horrific stuff. Like he is, making deals with the devil and all this stuff. And plus, Doctor Doom has to be a bad guy. It's in the name, Doctor Doom. Red Skull has to be a bad guy. Magneto, he's a raving lunatic madman who became a racial supremacist. He has to be a bad guy. He can pretend to be a good guy. He thinks he's a good guy. You may think he's a good guy, but ultimately he's a selfish guy who's going to show his true colors. Same with Emma Frost. She uses her sexuality, her wealth, and her powers to manipulate people. I think it's perfect that she's playing to be the good guy. Oh, look, I run a school. But we see her murdering people. She's offering up a 13-year-old girl to Sebastian Shaw. This ain't a good guy, And I'm sure Ghislaine Maxwell donated to charity too, to keep people off her trail. Or maybe she actually, who knows? Maybe in her crazy mind, she thought she deserved to rule the world. I don't know. The character could be redeemed. The problem is readers don't think of moral redemption as real. Right. Like, whatever. So, I agree with you. The sacrifice, why death? Yeah. And if I love somebody says, you probably, Jean Grey, these all did horrible things and came back. Yeah. According to the comics, Jean Grey didn't do anything. It was the Phoenix Force, which is the so Jean Grey never blew up a planet. Jean Grey, never became Dark Phoenix. It was a psychic entity that masqueraded as her, which I hate that story. It removes all the gravitas of the story. And it wasn't me, it was somebody else. I hated that. I hate the Phoenix Force. It is one of, if I was to run X-Men comics, okay, I'll go on a little rant now, and then we'll go into the comics. If John's Longbox was to write the X-Men, first and foremost, it would become a horror comic. The X-Men, humans, it would be revealed that a lot of these horrible things that happen were because of mutations. You would live in fear if you found out that your child was a mutant. Oh no. Like, it would, at the risk of becoming offensive, but it would become part of the abortion things. Your kid's a mutant. Like, how Iceland, as horrible as it is, Iceland is like they find out their kids has Down syndrome. They're like, we eradicated Down syndrome. Yeah, murder is a solution. Murder is a solution. They have abortions if they find out their kids have Down syndrome. So there's no Down syndrome kids in Iceland. It's not something to be celebrated. Aborting your kids is not something to be celebrated. But this would be part of the X-Men. People like, oh, is your kid a mutant? Doctors would be like, abortion. So the X-Men are now behind the moral 8 ball. Do they freedom of choice? You're eradicated. Right then and there, you got a story. Right then and there, you got a story. And like it or not, these uncomfortable things make good stories. So that's the first issue that I think. Second is a kid's born. Hey, your baby's born. Oh my God, he's suffocating. Why is he suffocating? They're doing CPR. They're doing this, and the kid dies. They're like, we don't know. And then they do an autopsy. He was a mutant, and he could only breathe in methane. You know what I mean? He's a mutant. Not all mutations are cool. If the kid was born into a methane atmosphere, he would have been Namor, super powerful. But unfortunately, he was born into an oxygen, and now he's dead. Other kid, 12-year-old kid, gets horny for the first time, freaking explodes. Boom! Guts all over the wall, house taken out. There's spontaneous human combustion. This would be horrible. Some kids are born, they have the death touch. The mother dies during childbirth. The doctor picks up the kid to smack. He's dead. Everybody's dropping dead. He has a death aura or something like that. And then the baby just dies from exposure in this room because nobody can figure out what to do. Horror comic. That, nobody wants mutation to happen. Oh my God. And then we find out that the X-Men, so like less than 1% of all births are mutants, and less than 1% of the survivors make it to X-Men level. Because these are the survivors, they have the cool power. But most mutations would be detrimental, horrible. That, like those in the olden days, the fairy took my baby, it's a changeling. That's because it was a deformed baby, and they didn't understand, or they psychologically didn't want to accept it. A kid's born with horns, tears mom apart. I'm sorry, moms, but this is why it would be a horror comic. Then we find out that Xavier has been mentally manipulating people. Maybe not consciously, but constant. And who's he been hanging out with the most? Scott Summers is the first one. Scott Summers, who got brain damage and can't control, so he's established that he has brain damage, and every major figure in his life is a telepath. So he's hanging out with Xavier, falls for Jean Grey. Then he meets Madeline Pryor, who's a clone of Jean Grey and has telepathy. And then he marries Emma Frost. You see the pattern here? What a coincidence that every major emotional connection in his life is with somebody who can control minds. And then he's mood swingy guy, evil guy, this guy, back and forth, whatever, abandons his babies and goes over. Why? Because Jean Grey and Madeline Pryor were unconsciously or consciously were pulling him in his vulnerable brain back and forth. Great story. Then we find out Emma Frost, big reveal, is she's been manipulating everybody behind the scenes. She's responsible for Bobby Drake. The X-Men are crazy segregationists because this is what the Hellfire Club was planning to do the whole long. She realized they weren't living up to her standards, and this is what she's doing. There you go. X-Men. That's the next 10 years of X-Men stories. Let's go. X-Men rant concluded. God loves, man kills. 3. God Loves, Man Kills, great comic. Unfortunately, it defined the X-Men for the next. That's the beginning of the X-Men were Superman, superhero stories, generic action, space pirates, space whales. Magneto wants to take over the world. Mutant X comes and killing people. That was a horror comic, and then Jean Grey can't control powers, becomes this. Arcade comes and wants to kill people. And then God Loves, Man Kills, and it's just been whiny X-Men, all of the whiny stuff that I can't stand about the X-Men. Agreed. Yeah. It would be tight. I mean, not a fan of abortion, but I'm also not a fan of murder, but superhero comic books have a lot of murder and stuff like that. Straight to cancellation. I think it would codename SIDS. Yeah, that would be Sid from Velasco's Dimension. I don't think it would straight to. I think people would be like, "Oh my God, X-Men's good again." It would chase off all of these posers right now, but I think the fans would like it. Cyclops does have brain damage. What are you, some kind of Cyclops? So Jean Grey is a living terror. Got it. Ma X-Rights. Yep, there you go. So okay, rant over. Let's talk about this comic. So I had to rebuy this comic. I don't know what happened, but some comics disappeared. Some of my original comics disappeared. So if you looked at last week's episode, you could see how banged up that issue was, because that one was my original comic that I bought off the shelves. This one was a replacement for a comic that disappeared. I don't know if I left them someplace. I don't know if somebody took it, but I replaced this about, I don't know exactly when I replaced it, but when I replaced it, I was into bagging and boarding and keeping my comics in as good a condition as possible. So this could be like, it says 1980. This could be as old as 85, because I'll say around 83 or so. I started bagging and boarding all my comics and became not that all my comics got to be near mint, but I was just like, why let them get damaged? You know what I mean? So there we go. Let's open up the comic. So this is 1980. Chris Claremont, John Byrne, writer, co-plotters, penciler. So John Byrne had a lot of input, and I think once John Byrne left, I think the clashing between Claremont and Byrne created some of the best comics, art through adversity. And then once John Claremont could do whatever he wanted, he turned it into a whiny soap opera. Terry Austin, inker, Tom Orzechowski, letterer, Glennis Wynn, colorist, Jim Scala-Krupp, editor, and Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. And Hellfire is their name. This is a great way to bring Angel into the story. It's just so good. So they're in New Mexico along the Continental Divide, literally miles from anywhere. Stands a very special house owned by a very special young man. So Angel, Warren Worthington, just comes flying out of the sky. And the X-Men showing up. Can we see we got Cyclops, we got Phoenix, Storm, Colossus, and Nightcrawler. Welcome to the Eagles Eyrie, my home away from home. And this house became like the headquarters for the Defenders during the last 25 issues or so of that comic, when Angel and Beast and Iceman, who was basically the old X-Men, but with like a Valkyrie and Gargoyle, I think with a cast. And what do we got? So we got a great establishing shot over here, so we know exactly where it is. And then, we go into some trickery over here. You don't really need to fill in the details once we have a few establishing shots. Our brain filters in the missing stuff, and it's great. Just fill it with blue in the background because we know it's wide open sky. Great location for a comic book. And then what do we got here? I just lost my words all of a sudden, but we got this great, all the characters. I don't know why the coloring is the way it is over here, but maybe the colorist was rushed. I don't know. But, we got Xavier, Phoenix, Cyclops, Angel, Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, Wolverine, and they're all just like, they got a word balloon. Everybody's getting a chance to say something. You know, of course, Colossus is admiring the beauty, and of course, Wolverine is like, beauty schmooty. You know, Canadian Rockies are better. And then establishing Angel as a schmoozer, a Mac hound, a snake, whatever you want to call him, and he's, you know, that kiss is just a little more than like a friendly, hey, look, it's my you know, classmate. You know, remember that was like the love triangle. Angel and Cyclops were going back and forth. You know, nothing better than a classic love triangle. And then his girl shows up last. You know, keep it up, Wings, and Scott is the least of yours. Meet Candy Southern. She and I are what People magazine call an item. You know, and again, like did Claremont mean to do this? So People magazine is writing about Angel and Candy Southern, you know, the hot couple. But I thought mutants were hated and persecuted, except for Angel. And this is another thing. Like, people are always like, okay, how come you know, Nightcrawler is hated and feared, or Cyclops is hated and feared, but not Ben Grimm? Because Ben Grimm's not a mutant. Because being a mutant brings with it fear and horror of your kid could be a mutant. Ben Grimm was a full-on mature adult, and when he turned into a horrific rock golem, he already had the mental wherewithal to deal with that. He became a sullen jerk for the first 20 issues of the Fantastic Four, but he mellowed out. You know, he found love, and he didn't lash out. He hit a stray move. You know, he broke cars and everything like that once in a while, but he didn't explode. He didn't take out things. He didn't spread a death virus. You know, he for the most part behaved relatively well. There was little instances, you know, but mutants, they're born with these powers, and just like a little kid just poops everywhere, pees everywhere, breaks stuff, throws temper tantrums. Now you got a superpowered, horrific mutant that's radioactive, like Nuclo, that has laser beams, that has superhuman strength, that accidentally is killing their parents. You know, that you sit next to your kid in class, and then, you know, releases poison and venomous darts and things like that, you know, that they can't control. Like, you know, little kids can't control themselves, and now you put superpowers on. It's horrific. It should be a horror comic, and there you go. And then yet People magazine is talking about Angel. Where's the fear? You know, it's contradictory. You know, if mutants are persecuted and everything like that, why, you know, Angel, he's you know, Paris Hilton and Warren Beatty or whatever. I don't know. You know, so can we go someplace private and talk? He flies away. Here you go. If anyone's hungry, we have lunch fixings in the house. First, Scott disobeyed my instructions, and here's Xavier being a jerk. Thank you, Miss Southern. Go with her, the X-Men. I'll be along directly. And now this is Xavier thinking. First, Scott disobeyed my instructions by bringing the X-Men here instead of to our New York headquarters, and now he flies off with Angel without even a word of explanation. I do not understand why he's behaving so strangely, and I do not like it. Xavier is mad because Cyclops is not his slavish, you know, cult member. You know, is Xavier now upset because he's not controlling Cyclops the way he used to be? Yeah, just more grist for the bill of why I can't stand Xavier. So they go to a top of one of these buttes and they talk. And, you know, so what's on your mind? Someone's after the X-Men. Someone else is new. Someone's always after the X-Men. This is different. So we got this flashback. Let's bring up all of the readers up to speed. You can see that the boxes are emboldened and the corners are rounded. That always means a break in time. So here's White Queen assaulting the X-Men. I mean, I could figure for that because even superheroes beat each other up, you know. Ben Grimm goes to play poker and Spider-Man's there. Next thing you know, they're punching each other through the window. That's just a comic book trope. That I can forgive, you know. And there was Kitty Pryde, terrified 13-year-old girl being groomed. And now the Dazzler over here, who is a big nothing burger. You know what I mean? I didn't know it at the time, but I've since found out that she's a created by committee kind of character. Oh, let me address the chat. I was getting caught up in the comic. Gordon Goodbrother, I straight to cancellation. I don't know. I think this would be the shot in the arm that the X-Men needs. Is this where the X-Men randomly start mouth kissing? I know. You know, Cut Klops is in the corner just watching this guy make out with his girlfriend. Money trumps mutancy. Yeah, I mean, let's face it. Angel, as far as mutants go, he's got cool, photogenic, charismatic powers. You know, he's born rich, he's good looking, and he's got these cool wings. You know what I mean? And he calls himself Angel. So even in his adolescence, what harm could he have caused? You know, so plus we could always say he hired a PR firm, got him in People magazine, did this charm offensive. You know, you could say that. So yeah, in a way, money does trump mutancy. Angel gets away with it because he's pretty. Xavier was in charge of Slim. Yes. Scott has Gene now. Disco Dazzler. So there we go. We're all caught up in the comments. Romaine, let us turn the page. Oh no. Delayed gratification. Oh no. So we got Epic Magazine. Excellent. Epic Magazine was great. Epic Magazine. First there was, as far as I know, I'm probably wrong. I was going to ask Marcus, but where's Marcus? Where are you, Marcus? You missed. You weren't here Friday. You're not here today. I hope all is well. So Heavy Metal, and then Eclipse Monthly, Eclipse Comics put out like an adult magazine, you know, type of sci-fi fantasy magazine in the vein of Heavy Metal, but more comic books, less. Heavy Metal had a lot of articles and stuff like that too. And then Marvel followed with Epic Magazine, you know. So this is adult fantasy magazine, and they're excellent. They really were excellent. And then there was the Epic imprint, where it was like Vertigo before Vertigo, and Vertigo, you know, was Image Comics before Image. Just really, really good. Really, really good. And we got this Fun Factory ad. I love all this stuff. If Angel was called Bird Bones, he wouldn't have gotten over on the public. Yeah. Epic Magazine, Heavy Metal for adolescents. Pretty much. Our brothers used to get Heavy Metal. They were all into that Frazetta artwork. I got a box of Heavy Metal. I don't remember where I got it. It must have been when I bought one of his collections. So, you know, starting at issue 1, I should start reading them. So now we're talking about how Phoenix battled Emma Frost, you know, and defeated. And tell me, Brittany, you're a girl. Couldn't you see Emma Frost going after Cyclops and manipulating him as revenge? Like, oh, Jean Grey humiliated me, I'm going to steal her man. Like, isn't that what, like, all these reality shows are based on? Writes itself. How am I thinking about this? And I'm a moron. You know, where are you, X-Men editors? No, instead you got Tom Brevoort, who's managing the decline of Marvel Comics. So now he's like, the part of the Hellfire Club is like, are you sure? I'm a member of the Hellfire Club. So's Candy. I inherited the membership along with Worthington Industries when my folks passed away. It's an old, very stuffy, yet risque establishment club. Candy and I visited it once. Before I told the world I was the Angel, we didn't like it. We never went back. Whatever your White Queen learned about the X-Men, it wasn't for me. There has to be a leak somewhere, Warren. These people know our powers, our plans, the way we fight, the way we think. Remember, it's been revealed that the Hellfire Club hired Warhawk back in issue 110 to spy on the X-Men. He implanted spy devices. So, you know, this story has been percolating for years in Chris Claremont, John Byrne's mind. So look at this. So Angel, Warren Worthington III, inherited into this private elite club because he's super rich. And then, you know, It's an old, very stuffy, yet risque. They're dancing on a razor's edge of what they could say. We didn't like it. We never went back. Kudos for Angel. He's a little bit more prudish than he would give the world to think. And then, and it's not enough. Something has been happening to Gene. Someone mentioned my name. You fellas been talking for hours. Time for a break. Nice entrance, Red. Because all of a sudden I have a feeling I'm not wanted. He takes off. The sun sets. It's all beautiful. It's all romantic. And sure thing, running $1 million business has been good for the Angels. He's lost none of his fire, his passion. He's steadier inside. It's more sure he's grown up. We've all grown up. And then, boom, she transforms her costume into her bikini, laying out a picnic. What's going on? And she takes off his mask. What are you doing? If I open my eyes, she's like, open your eyes, Scott. Nothing will happen. I'm telepathically keeping your optic glasses. So she's mind controlling and fixing his brain damage. She's in his brain, tempering. I mean, come on, man. This story writes itself. I didn't just come up with this idea out of Planet Nebulon. It's all in the comics. I'm very big on continuity. Jean Grey, these telepaths, could she reverse the brain damage right over here? She's telepathically holding it back. Can't she telekinetically reverse the damage? She doesn't want to. You know what I mean? I hate to say it, but this few more issues from now, she's blowing up planets. In her fantasy world, she's sexually mutilating people. It's I can't believe it. My powers, and here they go. So they're having some fancy loving time. And it's romantic and it's beautiful. And at the time I thought it was, this is so great. But to me, this is part of, Dark Phoenix's manipulations. I hate to say it, but I've turned cynical in my dotage. Angel and Candy confirmed swingers. No, if they were confirmed swingers, they would have stayed at the Hellfire Club. We never went back. We didn't like it. We never went back. They were shocked at what they saw. So kudos on Angel. He's living up to the name over here. If they were confirmed swingers, he'd be like, yeah, we go every weekend. It's awesome. You got to go. Don't bring Gene, if you know what I mean. Brittany says, I could see that for sure because he's also got cred as a leader. So Emma would definitely try to, yeah. Writes itself, guys. I'm a moron. And I think of this. Gene is literally fixing him. Yeah, I could fix him. But yet she doesn't fix him. She can. Why doesn't she make it permanent? Because, we need the character to stay the way he is. To me, this is just like a stay with me. I know it's supposed to be sweet and beautiful, but I can't help but project what I know from the future back into this comic. I'm a superhero, not a brain surgeon. Damn it, Gene. Typical female fantasizing about sexual mutilation. I fixed that. So here we go. Let's turn the page. Oh no, more ads. Banana Stamp. Superhero Prize Club. I don't know. I miss all this stuff. Be a slam dunker. Can you see that? Be a slam dunker. Golden State Comics. Fly Rockets. Comics Guide and Catalog. I just wish I paid attention to these comics catalogs. I could have afforded comics even back then. When I talk about this expensive back issues. So now, this is our moment. Let's not waste it. A week passes. So Jean Grey and Cyclops spend a week doing the bouncy up on the buttes. And I love this. So we got this beautiful New Mexico, and I lived in New Mexico. It was beautiful. Like it was too poor to eke out a living. Like I got jobs there, and I'm like, I can't afford to live. So I went to Northern California, then Southern California, then back to New York with my tail between my legs. Spent the next decade broke as broke could be, and whatever. But man, New Mexico, you cannot argue with the weather. It is beautiful. 320 sunny days a year. Even when it's got less hot, like when I'm talking like 99-degree days, it's got less 99-degree days, at least in Albuquerque, than New York. But even when it gets to be 99 degrees, it's low humidity, so it's not that bad. It never gets that cold. Like when it snows, it was like a dusting. Beautiful. If you got the money, I don't know. I mean, I left in 1999, I think, or 2000. I forget what year I left. I don't know if the crime is gotten worse, And then we juxtapose it with New York storms. It's just it is perfect, And here we got rain, and all the people are going to the Hellfire Club. And then what do we got? Nightcrawler and Wolverine. They're assaulting the Hellfire Club, and they're going through the sewers. And this is just a pet peeve of mine. Have you ever been in the sewers in New York? No? Well, I have. You do not walk through the water. I don't care about, like, I buy this. Wolverine, okay, he's got the healing factor. This is raw poop. It's just liquid brown poop water. It's not clean water. It's raining, so there's water runoff. You know what I mean? So maybe it's cleaner now because of the rain, but rainwater goes through New York, goes through all that garbage juice, drains down into the sewers. First off, if it's raining, these things would be full. They'd be drowning, but it's the comic books. But you do not wade through the sewers in New York. You die. It's just gross. At least Nightcrawler's on the ceiling. I don't got a healing factor. I'm going to stay up here. Maybe Wolverine is the only person who could do this. And then, so what are they doing? They're assaulting the Hellfire Club. And I like this. He's touching this. He's got like a little radio collar talking. I don't know why Jean Grey's not being the telepath. Oh, I know why, because they got their own telepath. So whatever. And I love this. Wolverine he skims the insulation. Now, I'm an electrician. You take out your adamantium claws, and it's established that they're ferrous because Magneto pulls them out of his body, so it means that they conduct electricity. So he's skidding the insulation off. So for those of you who don't know, there's electrical pipes. The electrical pipes would be nowhere near the drainage systems of they would have their own electrical tunnels, because you don't want the water would corrode, and all the poop and all that acids, stuff like that, would eventually, maybe not in 10 years, but eventually corrode the protective coating. So this is just a little thing, but I'll forgive it because, he's not an electrician. But he's cutting away the galvanized steel, cutting away the insulation while standing in water. So Wolverine, what? This Wolverine should have been shocked. And right then and there, that should have caused a blackout. He's carving it. If he's skidding it and exposing it, there's no way to do it without touching the wire. The electricity goes through him. He's touching the water, ground, boom, instant blackout right then and there. But nobody does electricity right in comic books. It's one of my pet peeves, but I forgive it because I'm sure there's doctors and lawyers who, rip apart lawyer and doctor stuff in comic books. So there we got the wires. Oh yeah, so these wires are just bundled, exposed. No, that's an OSHA regulation. They should have a galvanized steel pipe around them. But no, that's what he does. So when the water rises, these exposed wires, now right then and there, if these are all exposed wires, that's all. It should be blackout, because now the wires are exposed, touching each other. So the electricity that's supposed to go in this wire is not, and this wire, now they're touching. So that short right there, boom, explosion. But I can annoy people with electrical problems. So now, very sneaky. I like it. I do my best. So now we cut to the rest of the X-Men that could pass as regular people. They are going in as guests of Warren Worthington. If we haven't run by midnight, we've run into trouble. I do not like the idea of you, the X-Men, blindly walking into a potential death trap. Neither do I, but I can't see an alternative. We have no hard evidence connecting the White Queen's outfit with this Hellfire Club other than the name, and we can't afford to make a mistake. We need proof one way or another. Wow. Now that Cyclops is physically and mentally distancing himself from Xavier, he's thinking like a normal American. We can't just go in there and beat people up. We need proof. We need information. Wow. Stay away from telepaths, Scott. You're making sense. Wish us luck, Professor. Cyclops out. You don't approve of Scott's plans, Professor. It's not that I still unable to reestablish my psychic rapport with the X-Men. They're going into action, and I won't be able to help them or guide them. By heaven, Angel, I don't even know what's happening until it's too late. At that moment, inside the Hellfire Club, I've never worn clothes as fine like this. They feel marvelous, yet it does not feel right to wear a suit that costs more than my father earns an entire year. It's been too long since I've been home. I miss it more and more each day. Just nice, Colossus. You're the good guy. You're the wholesome breadbasket guy. He's the equivalent of Clark Kent. He's from Siberia. He's a farmer, hard-working, salt of the earth guy, big, strong guy wearing red and blue. I find that to be. I wonder if that's designed on purpose. But Colossus is the Superman of the X-Men. Good. And did they destroy him yet in the modern X-Men? I mean, he would be a perfect target because he's the wholesome, goody two shoes Superman. Moral example of the team. Storm's looking radiant over here. Look, the French made outfits with the sexy stockings and everything like that. Chris Claremont is doing everything he can to tell you what the Hellfire Club is about without saying it, because there's this thing called the Comics Code Authority, and that made it a better comic. I'm going to say something controversial here, but the restraints given the Comics Code Authority, granted, even this story probably wouldn't have been able to be told 10 years ago. So society is moving. What do they call that? The Overton window. But the restraint, because if this was just a, mature audiences or direct market and stuff like that, I think it would have been overly on top, on the nose, and subtlety goes a long way. I think it would have been a lesser story. The constraints forced Claremont and Byrne to be more clever. There you go. So let's check out the content, the comments, and I'll turn the page after that. Oh, wow, a lot of comments. Did someone really earn a black and white TV show? Did anybody earn any of this stuff? Was it a front? Did it really exist? I'm kind of fascinated with that. I would love to. There's a YouTube channel where they just show you what the ad of what it advertises and what you get. I watched that. I was laughing. The Sea Monkeys were the biggest disappointment. My buddy Mike, who makes Marshall Strong comics. Marshall Strong is the leader of the Meta League, which I'm writing the script as we speak, but I'm in the middle of writing the script for Meta League. Marshall Strong is part of the Longbox universe, and I'm hoping that when he finishes his obligation to Thunder Zone, we're going to fold his comics, do like a second printing, clean up a little bit of continuity, and then bring him into Longbox comics. Wolverine, Nightcrawler, you're both ugly. You go into the sewers. That's exactly right. Well, Nightcrawler, you're ugly. You get the dirty job. Wolverine, you never take it off that mask. You're a short little freak with the bad social. We can't afford to have you here with the beautiful people. Yeah. Teenage Mutant Ninja X-Men. Exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if this was part of the inspiration. Good observation. I didn't think of it, but now it's obvious. Because around now, the X-Men are, look at this. Winner of 5 Eagle Awards. What are Eagle Awards? Those are England's comic book awards. We have the Eisners and the Harveys, stuff like that. They had the Eagle Awards. So X-Men is getting recognized. This is, I don't know for a fact, but I guarantee that Eastman and Laird were big fans of this comic. So yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja X-Men. I bet you, whether consciously or subconsciously, this is part of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle lore. Wolverine is something that eats this. Yeah, if he could expel bullets from his body, he does. One of my favorites is when he got injected with the brood egg. And he was supposed to, again, the brood. Chris Claremont was watching Aliens. Another perfect example of whatever this guy's watching comes into his comic books. He flat out said it. But anyway, he gets injected with the egg. He's supposed to burst out with the alien, but his healing factor, and he was scarred for a couple of issues. Teenage Mutants. This Hellfire infrastructure is rather poor. Yeah. Well, they're rich, and they probably bribed all the OSHA people to stay away, or the building was built. So sometimes, like asbestos abatements. Here's a little. Sometimes we'll go into a job, and before the job will get shut down. Like, so we'll start working, and all of a sudden the job gets shut down, and we get scattered to the four winds because they discovered like this building was grandfathered in. It still has asbestos, or it still has like, building codes from 100 years ago, and they got to get fixed up before we could go in and start working. Because like asbestos, if asbestos is in your building, it's not going to hurt you unless it's turned into dust, particleized, and that dust can be brought in. But if it's just like like a little, if it's an 8x8, I think it's an 8x8 tiles. If you have 8x8 tiles in your ceiling or floor, flooring tiles, those are asbestos. They don't make them anymore, so it's easy to spot asbestos tiles if they're 8x8s. Now I think the standard is 10x10 or 12x12, I forget. But if you got those 8x, those are asbestos. They're not going to harm you unless you're demoing or installing. You know what I mean? And over 40 years of wear and tear, you're probably going to break something and inhale dust. So these wires, these are probably installed around the 20s or something like that, which would be really bad, because then they would have cloth insulation that would break down. So yeah, bad infrastructure. All right, I talked myself out of your argument and then back into your argument. No prize for you. Cyclops believes in Miranda rights and warrants. At one point, the X-Men followed the law. At one point. As of right now, I'm on the X-Men side, the heroes. You'll see, later on, they just like, we want to be treated like everybody else, except we want exemptions to all the rules. That's another typical female leader. Emma Frost wants personal gains, but won't fix the real problems, like the plumbing. Yep. Well, Jean Grey didn't fix. She could have fixed Cyclops right then and there. Cyclops wishing he was the Superman, but he's barely a Robin. I don't think it's. I like Cyclops. I know if Stippling Vaughn is watching, I know Stipling's gonna go off on Cyclops, and he has valid reasons. I'm not gonna argue with him about that, but he's younger than me. He came in. His first exposure to Cyclops was X Factor #1. It's hard to recover from that. Scott knows he would be the speed of one if the violations go down. Yep. Scoot. RRTMZ. It's 3 a.m. Just woke up. A great comic, but the X-Men are woefully naive here. The Hellfire Club is the polar opposite, morally decadent and deprived as well as power hungry. Much worse than Magneto. He gets it. He gets it all the way down there in New Zealand. He gets it. The turtles are reptile people who eat underground. So there's that. Wolverine has to be frustrating for the xenomorphs of Brood. Yep. I tried to explain asbestos Rick to my family, but they won't listen. Oh, God. Yeah, asbestos. Don't inhale or eat it. It gets into your lungs. What asbestos dust does is if you breathe it in and it goes into your lungs, it stays in your lungs. And, the little fibers, it's little fibers. And the little fibers just stay in your lungs, and they irritate your lungs. And then the lungs form scars over them and then grow over the scars. And eventually, it just causes your lungs to break down, and your lungs can't expand. It's getting harder to breathe. That's mesothelioma. Like, there's a lot of guys in my industry who had mesothelioma. Fortunately, those days are over, but you'll still catch cases of mesothelioma. I wonder what the industry-wide problem is going to be for my generation. Emma spends her money on laundry, not plumbing. Well, to be honest, this infrastructure is Sebastian Shaw's responsibility. Actually, this is Con Ed. The way it works in New York City is Con Ed is responsible for all the electricity to the main. So every building has just in the house you have overhead lines. So in a private house, the city or the governing authority over the electrical, they have authority over the lines to the house. There's a thing called the peckerhead. Yep, that's what it's called. From the peckerhead down, it's the homeowner's responsibility. So the equivalent of the pecker, there's like a switchgear room. So once it goes in through and it meets this big box, and these wires go there from that box on, it's the responsibility of the person who owns the building. So this is Con Edison. This is New York City. Con Edison so Con Edison is at fault for this, but in my mind, the Hellfire Club, they don't want Con Edison sneaking around, discovering all of these secret passageways, and so they bribed Con Edison. Con Edison was like, okay, just shows you how supervillain they are. Supervillainy. Going back to Sleep, a great issue. We loathe the Hellfire Club on so many levels. Historical Hellfire Club were hedonistic British and Irish aristocrats, hence the period costumes and slang. Was Chris? No, he wasn't envious. He was just making a great villain. They were villains. He was making great villainous characters. Peckerhead, that's racist. That's what it's called. I don't know why it's called the Peckerhead. I don't know why. But that's on private houses. If you ever look at your house, if for those of you who are homeowners, and the overhead wires, they come to your house, and then there's a pipe, and there's a pipe that brings the wires into your house. Usually it's like a 2-inch pole that goes to the meter outside your house, but there's a little rounded cup, and the wire goes in to that cup. That cup is rounded to keep water from going into and filling up that tube and then corroding your wires and causing a fire and burning down your house. So, you'll see wires, they go underneath and then up and down. All right, let's continue. Where were we? All right, we were here. I'm going to turn the page. See, I just love this stuff. Backgrounds, orange. Saves time, and you people watch this probably didn't even notice until I pointed it out, because that's John Byrne's a professional. He knows when he could save time by not drawing backgrounds. Renzo did it, and I was just like, so there was a page of, I put it on Twitter, patriarch fighting queen bitch, and there's just orange explosions, and I told Oscar, I said, that's, just color it orange and lines, you came in just before. So, John, you should consult on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Static Shock miniseries. There you go. I have a story called The Trick Before Dying, and it's a boxing-based superhero's funeral. He started out pre-World War I. This is all in Longbox Comics. And his first fight was with an electrical-based supervillain, and that's what caused him to become a superhero. That's his origin, his fight. And I did it to show people how electrical-based characters should work. And I'm sure some other electrician or whatever is going to call bullshit on it. Oops, and call me out on something that I messed up or whatever. I mean, when we're talking about fictional superhero people, I'm sure my interpretation of physics, because this is how I'm imagining it works, and this is the rules for his, but it's more realistic than throw a bucket of water on the guy and he short circuits out. Let's turn the page. Oh my God, we got Star Trek action figures, and they couldn't drum up a photograph of what the toys look like. And then we got Black Hole action figures. We couldn't drum up a photograph of what these toys look like. I love Star Trek, Star Trek, the motion picture is my favorite Star Trek movie. Why? It's the movie that's most like the original series. It's a philosophical, moral, ethical dilemma. Unfortunately, it bothers me so much that it's basically the Nomad episode redone. There's that, and then the Black Hole, a movie that's tonally all over the place. Is it a kids movie? Is it a horror movie? Is it serious? Is it comedy? But man, it's awesome. It's awesome. I urge you to watch it. Yes, it's flawed. Yes, you're gonna be like, what's going on? Like, is this for kids, or because it's too scary for kids, but it's too hokey for adults? I get the feeling that it was like, made by committee. and this is what you get. But there is some great stuff in it. Really good. I recommend watching it at least once. Keep in mind that it's seriously, seriously flawed. But back then, Disney was making interesting stuff. Is electricity 100% predictable? My gut says yes, but I'm sure somebody could come up with some phenomenon. But is gravity 100% predictable? Is light 100% predictable? If there's problem with electricity, it's something like that, we didn't know was there, or the circumstances changed. You know what I mean? But like, if you understand electricity, I mean, whenever there's an electrical fire, it's because of faulty misunderstanding or result of human tampering or things were done wrong. But houses aren't. Like, look at how much electricity in America is being used with such little problems. So I'm going to say, yeah, it's 100% predictable. Whenever there's a problem, it's because like an animal did something, or human error. Even lightning bolts, we could protect ourselves. Things don't burn down by lightning bolts. Things burn down in the wilderness by lightning bolts because humans aren't there to manage it. Not 100% predictable. All right, I'm not going to argue. And we turn the page. So now we got this opulent. I love this. Or even I have heard of some of the people here. Some of them are my countrymen. How could such as they plot the destruction of the X-Men? That's what we're here to find out, Peter. We both bait and trap. Lucky us. So Colossus and Storm, they're here at the Hellfire Club. Oh, they're here at the Hellfire Club, and they're noticing celebrities, politicians, the bigwigs. Sound familiar? This is eerie how it predicted Epstein. It's eerie, Or Peter inside, they say all is well. I wonder how long that meanwhile, they're talking telepathically. Shaw, all of you, the monitor screen. Look who's here. First appearance of Donald Pierce. Pleasant surprise. Jean Grey and Scott Summers, Phoenix and Cyclops of the X-Men. Search Pierce the Club. If they're here, the rest of the X-Men can't be far behind. So we got, Sebastian Shaw, Leland Pierce, Jason Wingard. Wingard, for weeks now, you've been boasting that Miss Jean Grey is yours, body and soul. Tonight is your chance to prove it. She could lead our attack on the X-Men. For your sake, I hope she succeeds. Dun, dun, dun. So meanwhile, in the main floor of the ballroom, I've mind scanned everyone in the room. They're perfectly normal. It's early yet. By the way, I like your dress. I thought you would. Pardon me, Sarah. May I cut in? And before he could protest, this phantasm takes over. And now Jean Grey is back in the colonial times, dancing with her husband. And there's Cuck Klops over in the corner, in the Cuck chair. You know what I mean? And I don't like talking about the Epstein files because it really, really disturbs me. But at the same time, we got to be logical. And Epstein was a predator. And part of his tactic was anybody who achieved any sort of influence, whether it be sports, money, politics, movies star, he would photobomb you and be around you. So there's a lot of people who are mentioned in the Epstein files that aren't bad people. That's what he did. He would get to the rich, the famous, the beautiful, the influential, and try to recruit them. A lot of people said no. A lot of people got the F away from him. A lot of people just went to the island and were like, oh, cool, I'm going to a cool party. And what the hell? What? I don't know if they were blackmailed into doing it, like the Diddy parties. They go to the Diddy parties. Next thing you know, they're drinking drugs they don't know, and their inhibitions go down, whatever. And now they're morally compromised. I do believe that stuff happened. This is what's going on here. So there's a lot of people here, like he says, his countrymen, right? And yet Jean Grey is saying they're normal people. They're not involved yet. Are they new to this party? If they rejected it, then they would have left. You know what I mean? But she's reading their minds and finding out that these people are all normal. You know, there's layers to the. These are pawns. You know, the Hellfire Club or the, you know, the pawns of the front line. These are the back, the inner circle. You know, that's Jason Wingard. That's a lot like what happened the night Gene and I first met Dazzler. He moved in, said hello, and the next thing they were kissing like old long lost lovers. And now it looks like we don't exist anymore. It's just stand there thing. This guy, this is the second time he shows up and steals away your fiance. You know, you just spent the week doing the nubs up there in New Mexico, and now you're just standing there going. Now, is it because he doesn't want to compromise the mission? Is it because he doesn't know what to do? Is it because he's being mentally controlled not to talk? I don't know. You know what I mean? But this doesn't make Cyclops look good. I don't like Jason Wingard, and there's more to my feelings than jealousy. And you know, we got Yellow. You know, what's that? Oh, no. Yellow is cowardice. They should have had green in the background. In New Mexico, Jean told me about her time slips, random episodes where she found herself physically shifting in time, reliving the life of an ancestor, a woman married to Jason Wingard and hailed as the Black Queen of the era of the Hellfire Club. I believe these time slips and Jean's total fascination with this Wingard creep are not a coincidence. You know, so is this mission personal for him too? Yeah. Thank you, Ben Franklin. The Hellfire Clubbers were not dummies. Yep. Clops. Thank God there aren't mutants. Demons are bad enough. Yub. There's children in Fox Prowl Comics. We got to keep it G-rated. And now Jason's taking her upstairs. Jean, wait up. She's ignoring me. What kind of hold does Wingard have over her? Because how charming. The stalwart hero and his to rescue his fair damsel. Not this time. That face. So he drops the illusion. This is just like him just flaunting now. Mastermind. That night, the X-Men met Dazzler. Scott saw Jason Wingard momentarily silhouetted in the headlights of the X-Men's Rolls Royce, throwing a shadow behind him that didn't match the face. Scott should have recognized the master of the illusion, but he was in a hurry with far more immediate worries on his mind. And he missed it. I bet they get to Jean fast if she's under Mastermind's influence. So now everything's tumbling into place. Everybody's tumbling into place. He knows now that Mastermind is manipulating Jean Grey. So he's running up the stairs. It's too late. Blam! Magnificent, my love. But the Hellfire Club wants the X-Men alive. Is Cyclops? Don't worry, Jason. Had the Black Queen struck to kill, there would have been nothing left but ashes. And then, dun, dun, dun. Now she's dressed like Emma Frost in the Avengers episode, the Hellfire Club. You know, look at that. It's got that. Oro, did you hear that sound? What's going on? My hearing's almost as sharp as Wolverine's. It was a man scream, Cyclops scream, and that sound was one of Phoenix's energy blasts. Upstairs, Colossus, quickly, our friends are in danger. So he transforms into steel. There must be some sort of energy transference, you know, and that energy transference just burns his clothes off. You know, Storm magically transforms into Storm. She's done that before. You know, she has the ability to just boop a costume. You know, Colossus is just his costume is just pressed down under his clothes, and when he transforms, I just imagine the energy transference just burns off his clothes. That, you know, but Storm just boop. She has a costume, and he goes, "Our traps have been strung. Goddess grant that our powers are sufficient to deal with whatever we're snared. Greetings, X-Men. I'm Sebastian Shaw. I advise you all surrender, or you'll be hurt." You know, if you're ready to a fight and there's just like a middle-aged guy with no shirt on, that guy is bad. You know what I mean? There's a middle-aged guy with no shirt on, like that guy's seen a thing or two. And I love this. By whom, little man, don't make me laugh. I must take care to hit him lightly. I only wish to knock him unconscious, but with my strength and armor form, I could easily kill. What? My blow had no effect. So he just runs up, pulls his punch, and hits Sebastian Shaw, and he just wronged my templated comrade. If anything, your punch has made me stronger than ever. He's telling us, but it's a bad move to tell your opponent exactly how your powers work. And I think Sebastian, Sebastian Shaw has one of the coolest superpowers. If you're playing in my role-playing game, I didn't create the role-playing game, but Villains Vigilantes, and you have Sebastian Shaw's power, you are an A-list power. You are a real cool power. He absorbs kinetic energy and transfers it into invulnerability and strength. That is just awesome. That puts you like near Superman level. The way I got to turn off my iPad. It's just making too much noise. Sorry about that. Why isn't it not turning off? Oh, because I'm hitting the wrong button. There we go. I don't know if the beeps were bothering you, but it's my iPad over here and all my messages. I guess I'm still being summoned to fight on Twitter. But anyway, in the V&V game, you take kinetic and you turn it into hit points, invulnerability, strength, whatever. There was no limit. So I actually had to make a limitation on it. And the limitation that I came up with seemed to work. And people who got that power never really argued with me. It made sense. Appropriate of nothing. That's my girl. And if a middle-aged guy has dad bod, you're really in trouble. Yeah. You know. I think my dad thought his punches made my brother stronger than ever. Fight me, Longbox. I don't want to fight you. You're a good guy. Who wants to fight? Who wants to fight? Here we go. Oh, no, this ad. I hate this ad. It always drives me crazy. Is there a Zoinks in there? Did I miss a Zoinks? We got a Brack. We got a Krakow. Okay, I thought I saw a Zoinks. Okay. I do not understand. My head's ringing. Never been hit so hard. He also said the same thing when Moses Magnum hit him. So did he hit him harder than Moses Magnum? You fool, I'm as much a mutant as you, and my superpower is one you can never defeat. He's like, I could try. So Colossus is on the ground. I love this kick. Boom. Hits that one time Colossus does not hold back, and his kick would have smashed a tank. Peter, no, Sebastian is unharmed, faster and stronger than F. Whammo. Half your team is beaten, Storm, and the battle has barely begun. Yet, I will be merciful. It's your funeral then. Never. So he's just getting stronger and stronger. As Colossus is hitting him, he's getting more and more powerful. What a great power. Kinetic absorption. So freaking cool. Can't let Shaw get a hold of me. I'll use my elemental powers to create a pea soup fog around me. That should hide him. I don't want to leave Peter, but I have to find a way to warn Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Professor X. And Peter's armored body is too heavy to carry. Yet she's carried it before. Forgive me, little brother. So she obscures vision and gets out of Dodge. And Nightcrawler's in some sort of boiler room. We're in Mindfrine. So far, you're good. Yeah, this cape is going down too easy. I've been feeling antsy all evening. Any more news from Gene? 9, like you, I'm beginning to get worried. Could be nothing, though the old saying goes, no news is good news. Dun, dun, dun. You know, this is just so perfectly plotted. Just, you know, there's so few perfect comics, and this is just one of them. It's just great. It's just so good. No, I didn't miss a Zoinks. Okay. Zoinks. Oof. I love how Storm looks flying there. Yeah. Nobody draws Storm better than John Byrne. Fight me, Longbox. There's no wind in the club for Storm to lift Colossus. Continuity is a thing until it's not a thing. I've seen her, a few times I've seen her carrying Colossus, but now I'm starting to realize she carried him in human form, and then when she let go, he turned into Colossus. So maybe she's not powerful, but yet she's carrying 2 people. Is Cyclops, is Colossus heavier than 2 people? Okay, so let's turn the page. King Conan. I avoided Conan comics as a kid, and even I had this. I don't know how, but this issue everybody has. If you collected comics, they must have printed a zillion copies of this. Everybody has King Conan, number 1. And I liked it. I should have went back and got Conan comics after that. We got a subscription. Marvel bucks. Oh, Brittany says, I've been waiting all week to hear this next issue, even though I'm sure I have a copy of the issue here. Cool, thanks. I love this. Sunday Comics and now Avengers Assemble is my two favorite things that I do on this channel. Colossus is a human missile. Yeah, he takes out Storm, or he tries to take him. Bro, we have an overabundance of Conan here, and no one's trying to buy them. Maybe I'll put in an order one of these days. All my spending money is going to making comics these days, so I haven't been buying back issues or board games or much of anything. Just paying the bills, making comics. So boom. Grip like steel. Can't breathe. And some sort of electrical field shooting through my body. Can't concentrate enough to teleport. In your case, Goblin, your lack of news could be fatal consequence. Here's the truth, Skinny. Fatal for you, huh? Your arm is wires. Curse you, what have you done? Cripes, you're a flaming robot. Not quite, Wolverine. Donald Pierce is a cyborg. So he's a non-mutant. A cybernetic organism. Part man, part machine. A living being with the power of a juggernaut. Yeah, well, I know all about cyborgs. I almost became one myself. You may be a $6 million man, bub, but when I'm done with you, $6 billion won't be enough to put you together again. I'm afraid I can't allow that, dear boy. You're welcome to stop me, Tubby, at your own risk. The name is Leland, Harry Leland. Now that is Orson Welles' character named Harry in the Third Man. Anybody know? Anybody? Bueller is in the Third Man. What was the name of the character that Orson Welles played? I wonder if that's why he's named Harry. Harry Leland. And your challenge is accepted, dear boy. Stop you I shall. What? I'm getting heavier. Can't move. Can barely stand. What's Fatso doing to me? Dear boy, I love this power too. It's almost too powerful. Gravity control. Dear boy, you X-Men are not the only mutants in the world skilled in the use of your special unique abilities. My own unique talent involves mass. Simply by concentration, I can increase the mass of objects and people around me. Must weigh tons, and he's making me heavier all the time. Strain's killing me, but I won't give up. And in the end, Eel Wolverine does not yield. My goodness, but the floor beneath him does. He drops like a runaway rocket into a storm sewer buried deep beneath the club, and he impacts when he finally hits the water is more than akin to slamming into a full steel wall. It leaves him stunned, barely conscious, and in the blink of an eye, swept away. So, boom, it's back into the sewers. This was not a sewer. This is a storm drainage. They do have, so this is probably not poop water, but it's going to drain into the poop water soon enough. All rivers lead to poop when you're below Manhattan. So Storm's flying through the club. What's going on? I can't raise Nightcrawler. This seems to be a typical thing. The X-Men get defeated. We get to see how cool the bad guys are. They get defeated, they get captured, and then they come back. It's the things that happen in the last couple of confrontations. The Hellfire Club beat us so quickly, so easily. I tried blasting through these windows with no effect. They have no effect. Some defensive systems neutralize their powers. See, so that explained to me why Con Ed and OSHA and stuff like that have no. So the Hellfire Club has done some sneaky high-tech reinforcements on their building, and to keep the local authorities. They bribe them. So there you go. That explains the inconsistencies in the wire. Only one route left, downstairs and out the front door, using the party guest to go, oops, and he's grabbed. I know every inch of this house, Storm. There's no way you could elude me for very long. And I love this red, red danger. Harry Leland is a redheaded Orson Welles. Yes, he is. Harry Lime. Thank you. I knew it was Harry. I just couldn't. That's Brendan Gleeson. Who's Brendan Gleeson? I don't know who that is. Woke up again. This period of Claremont was his peak. The 80s were a slow decline with Powerless Storm and a limitless plot armor turning into an insufferable gold box. Yep. Let's both fight Longbox. What did I do? I just read comic books. Instantly transform into the victim. What we got here? We got some ads. What's wrong with this picture? And I love this. I love this. So he grabs Storm by the ankle. He kicks her in the face. They don't understand his power yet. You know what I mean? So Storm's, I mean, we know she's doing the wrong thing, but in the heat of the moment, you know, we know it after the fact. But at the time, I was like, wow. So Spawn grabbed my cape. I've never seen anyone move so fast. I like a woman with Spirit Stone, but not too much. Spirit, you should have learned from Colossus. Defeat. I absorb kinetic energy. The harder anyone strikes me, the more powerful I get. I told you before, if you yielded, I would be merciful, but you resisted. So, like, look at this. Do I have to explain what's going on? He beats up this girl. He's holding her down. Look at the positioning. You know, he's talking about he likes a subordinate woman. You know, he might as well be holding a whip. It's so subtle that I'm sure that these White Queen stands don't understand. And then he just punches her in the back of the head. You know, drags her away. Well, we've done well tonight. We've trounced the X-Men with no loss to ourselves, and none of the club's guests are the wiser. It's been a long time since I exercised my mutant ability. I've forgotten how good it felt. You know what I mean? Crom. And here they are. The X-Men, they literally throw them into a pile. Perhaps the Hellfire Club should set its sights higher. Today, the X-Men. Tomorrow, the Avengers. I wonder, dare I match my power against that of Iron Man or Thor? How's your arm, Pierce? It was just a scratch, or easily repaired. I'm fine now. Scratch how Wolverine cut through your precious bionic arm like it was made of butter. Jason, we've just won a splendid victory. Why spoil it with harsh words? The Black Queen speaks true, Wingard. Be of good cheer or be silent. This could be trouble. Wingard is deliberately provoking Pierce, but he's really challenging me. We got this orange background. You know, we got the hot chick just serving him. Wingard is as much as a natural leader as I. Sooner or later, he'll make his bid to take over the inner circle. Positive that as long as he controls Phoenix, our Black Queen, none of us would oppose him. Ours was a group effort, Wingard, a group victory. We all did our part. Of course, Shaw. But just remember, it was my psychic seduction of Jean Grey that provided the key to our victory. We could have done without her. Is that so? Very well, Pierce. I'll simply release my hold on her. See how long you'll last. Turmoil within the ranks. Just so good. And look at the backgrounds. We don't need no stinking backgrounds. We got this establishing over here. John Byrne with the legal cheats, you know, and our brain doesn't care. Our brain doesn't care. Sometimes you gotta make up for lost time. You know. Brendan Gleeson is a gnarly-faced Irish actor. Who did? Oh, Potter Films, Braveheart, Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, I know who he is. Is he the one that played Mad Eye Moody? You hit him high, I'll hit him low. Uh-oh, they're plotting against me. And they're plotting right in my face. That's how confident they are. That punch to the back of Storm head is a brutal arc. I know. Yeah, it's well done for so many reasons. I mean, he's a villain. He's a powerful villain. And then it shows you how brutal he is, how ruthless he is, and it plays on our emotions. Storm is a woman, beautiful woman. Nobody likes to see a beautiful, and she's pinned and helpless. It's basically a donkey punch. I mean, look at this. Look at that. Do I need to explain what a donkey punch is? That is literally a donkey punch. It makes us hate Sebastian Shaw all the more. You know? Yeah, he's pulling back because he doesn't want to kill Storm. Crom, you know, RRTNZ. I think, yeah, we talked about that. I think Sebastian Shaw's appearance based on Robert Shaw. We talked about that. Emma Frost was down. The rig mastermind was Peter. Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning. If he really punched Storm in the back of the head, he pulled back. He pulled back. Yeah, don't explain what a donkey punch is. I won't. Let's make up a superhero or supervillain, the Donkey Puncher. And I don't punch donkeys. The Human Torch, a hot time in the old town. I love, like, he's got his gloved hands holding the newspaper. Why be on fire then? Why be on fire? Let's be responsible, you know? Great balls of fire. Flamethrower wasn't kidding. Look at the torch, you know. So he's fighting the flamethrower, and he throws Twinkies at him. There we go. The Human Torch. He's A-okay. He understands the deliciousness of Twinkies. And Jason Wingard, that's enough. Both of you. I'm chairman of the Inner Circle. I, Sebastian Shaw, propose a toast to the Hellfire Club and our Black Queen. Long may she reign. And as for our captured mutants, by the time we finish with them, the X-Men may well have perished with Wolverine. Okay, suckers, you've taken your best shot. Now it's my turn. And literally, this panel and the next issue, it's like a trebuchet. It just launched Wolverine into the A-list, right? Like up until this point, he was a C-list character. He was just Cyclops' pest. Next issue is when he shines. Literally, he becomes a superstar. Wolverine alone. Enough said. It's so great. Brilliant. Brilliant. I love this letter. Jason Wingard is really mastermind, right? Michael Hornsby. If you read the issue like a sensible fellow, Mike, story first, letter call second, you already know the answer to your question. If you haven't read the story, go and read it now. We got Breen Allen and Brian Kane. And now we got the Revolutionary War Soldiers, cash or prizes, back cover. I don't know why this cover always it just seemed like the perfect back cover. I don't know why. The colors, everything about it just seemed like this is the cover of all covers, back covers. This is what back cover makes me think maybe I should do some sort of back cover for an issue of Heroic Tale. Well, they do a flip covers, but maybe I don't know. I put like the faces of all the creators, something like that. That'll be fun. So there you go. What do you think? What do you think? Yeah, Donkey Punch has probably been done in The Boys. The Human Torch isn't worried about fire. The Boys is trash. It's a ripoff of Pat Mills' Martial Law, which did everything it does, just smarter and better. Who reads the letter column first? Barbarians. Crazy people do. In 1987. Yep. I would recommend Martial Law. It's like, to me, Martial Law is just like the most British American comic, if that makes sense. It just seems to have British sensibilities. The main heroes are fascists. I mean, can't get more British than that. Judge Dredd is a fascist. Those Brits love their fascism, and now they're suffering because of it. Brian Bow makes Ed like those. Yeah, he did the Ed in my comic. Brian Bow did Fabrizio Aiello did the Ed in my Heroic Tales #1. Fabrizio Aiello, who does Horace H. Hoover, but Brian Bow allowed. I get what you're saying. Brian Bow, if you read Wolf and Batsy, he does the Captain Bloodclot, and he does these types of ads. Yes. More specifically, Brian Bow in Wolf and Batsy, which you could go to brianbow.net. I recommend the comics wholeheartedly. You know, he does ads like this in his comics. You know, he'll do Captain Bloodclot, and he puts them in the back of it, and they're a hoot, man. I really, really like them. So there you go. What do you guys think? You know, now we're at the point. I've been talking for a little over an hour and a half. And as long as the comments keep going, I'll keep going. What do you think? Gordon Good Brothers give me the thumbs up. So am I wrong about the Hellfire Club? Am I wrong about the White Queen? No, I'm not. I'm not wrong. It's okay if you like the character. I like Dr. Doom. I like the Red Skull. These are great characters, but I'm not deluding myself to thinking that they're the good guys. You know, what point is a villain irredeemable? And there's nothing wrong with a bad guy who's just bad. I don't understand this. We got to make the good guys we got to make the bad guys relatable. We got to give them, it just seems like our society is just going out of the way to make us relate to the bad guys. Some people are just bad. You know, I don't want to relate to Jeffrey Dahmer. He's bad. I don't want to relate to Jeffrey Epstein. He's just bad. You know, and the Hellfire Club are just bad. Emma Frost was bad. Yeah, she had some misfortunes growing up. Who hasn't? That's what makes you a hero, is you overcome the misfortunes. She succumbed to the misfortunes. She's bad. You know, everybody probably except for Superman's whole planet blew up, but he grew up not knowing that. You know what I mean? Everybody has misfortunes. Everybody's sympathetic to a point, but they're bad. Brittany says that was great. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you. The book's in great condition. Yeah, I was saying at the beginning, my original copy disappeared. If you saw last week my comic was kind of beat up. That was the one I bought off the newsstand. I bought this off the newsstand too, but it disappeared. It disappeared. A couple of my X-Men comics disappeared. I never sold any comics. So it makes me think that maybe I brought it to school and it disappeared, or I lent it out to somebody, because I did at one point. I was lending out comics to people and it never came back. So when I was going through my collection, I was like, oh man, I had to rebuy these comics. And so I was saying I must have bought this earliest around 1983. Around 1983 is when I started bagging and boarding all my comics and keeping them in good condition. Before that, I just kind of kept them in a box, bagged and board, threw them in a box. I didn't even start organizing them. Somewhere around 83, I became an anal retentive about my comics. So I don't remember exactly when I rebought, but I did rebuy it. And I remember spending like $15 or something like that for a back issue. Well, the guys who like Emma Frost feeling guilty, no, they're just telling me I'm delusional. They, block me on Twitter. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, I don't brag about much. There's two things. I'm an electrician. I've been doing it for 22 years. I don't brag about it. I make mistakes. You know what I mean? There's guys who know more. The electrical technology changes week to week. Just this week, I'm using stuff that I've never seen before. And now I got a new partner. And my partner's like, I've never seen this before, and I have to explain how to do that. You know what I mean? It changes so fast. So I don't brag about electrical. I do brag that I'm a pretty good dungeon master. I've been doing that for 40 years. I have techniques of bringing new people into the game. I think it works. And I do brag that I have a retarded knowledge of comics up to 2015, So, I like to think I made a good case about Emma Frost. And I would say, okay, I discovered Marvel Rivals. I like this sexy chick in the lingerie. She's my go-to character. I'm going to put pictures. Oh my God, that's her past? There's nothing wrong with being a newbie. Everybody's a newbie. We welcome newbies. We want newbies. Otherwise, the comic book medium, they'll stop selling the comics because there's not enough newbies. More people are leaving the hobby of comic books than are joining the hobby. We need newbies. But it's like, oh, I learned 2 facts and now I'm screaming. That part bothers me. I'm a newbie to Warhammer. I am not gonna. I got a group of friends out here. These guys know their freaking Warhammer. I am not gonna argue Warhammer with them. I like it. I'll say things, but if I'm wrong, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. You're literally spot on about the Hellfire Club. I believe that's the whole reason the story was published. Yes, and some people are just bad. Yeah. It's okay to have bad villains. It's okay to have bad villains. Sometimes it's just fun. Anton Arcane is one of my favorite villains. That guy is just a jerk. His whole reason, it started out he just wanted an immortal, tough body. And then later, he just wants to bother his niece. That's it. That's his whole motive. He's just a jerk. I don't want to get into all the stuff, but that's basically the bottom line. He just wants to bother Abigail. I think they just like that more. Yeah. She looks cool. She's sexy. She's hot. She's not in this particular issue, but look at that. That works. There's a reason that works, And they saw her in Marvel Rivals, and now they're like, that's my girl. Yeah. I blocked because of right. You have to be egregiously jerky for me to block you. I think I blocked like 6 people, and I think 5 of them are all from that faction of comics that is just nut jobs, and I think one I just, because he was just like cursing at me over something stupid. You know what I mean? I don't even remember. But that's it. You know, sometimes there's a reason to block people, but whatever. It's kind of funny. She is not real. I know. Yeah, Harry Leland has white hair on the cover. Yeah, coloring issues. Why is Xavier the leader? How did that happen? Start well. Xavier founded the X-Men. He came up with the concept. He's the money. He's the guy. You know, he was the 30-year-old and recruited teenagers and started training them to use their abilities. Now it was what 1964 around there where the first issue of the X-Men came in. He was the old guy, wheelchair bound. Great concept. You know, I'm going to use my wealth and knowledge to train adolescents on the use of potentially dangerous powers. It's a great concept. And then he was always the leader. And then at some point, I forget who the writer was. They were like, maybe Roy Thomas. At what point the X-Men outgrew a teacher? They graduated. So they killed off Xavier in the comics. Literally, he died. And that was the end of Xavier, never to come back. And then they changed their mind. So they retroactively decided that Xavier was away on a mission, and there was a mutant called the Changeling, disguised as Xavier. A Changeling died, not Xavier, and they brought Xavier back because they can't have permanent changes. You know, like Chuck Dixon says, comic books have the illusion of change. And that's the biggest. The illusion of change is the biggest difference between manga and comics. Manga being Japanese comic books, comics being American comic books. That is the biggest difference. Manga has real change. And I think that is why it's kicking butt. When the X-Men were only around for 20 years, the illusion of change was sufficient enough to make people think that changes were happening. Now that the X-Men have been around 40, 60 years, the illusion of change is starting to grow a little long in the tooth. People are clamoring for real changes, and the long format, never-ending story, I think, is starting to demand more than people are willing to give. And so Xavier comes back. They did a change. They brought back the change. He undid the change, and now Xavier's elite. And then they got rid of Xavier again. He believes the X-Men are dead, or on X-Men 112. He leaves. He goes to space, his space princeress, if anybody gets that reference. And he goes and lives with Leandra. Doesn't fit in, comes back. And now the X-Men have grown past him. And I started collecting the X-Men at 119. So Xavier was gone. And then he shows up and starts acting like a jerk. So, and I didn't have any old X-Men comics at this point. I've since, I bought that collection around 2000, 2002, and that had like every issue of the X-Men, So then I went and read the old X-Men, and I don't like Xavier. My first experience to him was him like barking orders to the X-Men, being a jerk. This era of X-Men is not flattering to Xavier. Where's the comment? That's Sean Connery. Where's Sean Connery? Well, like I said, that's Donald Sutherland, that's Robert Shaw, Orson Welles, Peter Wyngarde. And look up Peter Wyngarde and then cleanse your browser history. He didn't look like that then. X. What are we talking about? Where am I? I'm lost. What's going on? Oh, on SNL's Jeopardy. That's kind of weak source origin story, in my opinion. Of what? What are we talking about? I talked about so much stuff, I kind of lost track. Gordon. When Cyclops got so, I don't know what's going on. I don't want any of this to change. I wouldn't come back from Leandra, to be honest. John says Xavier like Ricky Ricardo. Xavier Cugat. Yeah, how are you supposed to say it? I always said Xavier. Is it Javier? Is it Xavier? But I always said Xavier. And Xavier Cugat. Xavier Cugat. Don't you go dissing Xavier Cugat. I won a game of Trivia Pursuit because I knew who Xavier Cugat was. We all, they said what famous musical conductor, conducted his while holding a chinchilla, and everybody's like, "What now?" Xavier Cugat. Final piece of the pie. Win Trivia Pursuit. Never badmouth Xavier Cugat when I'm around. You want to start a fight? Now, this fight might happen. You might need Brittany as a backup there, Gordon. Maybe some people do change, but it seems like most bad people don't change in any way they should. Yeah, well, we want realism in our comic books, but we don't want too much realism in our comic books. We want the real of cool. And I have no problems with a redemption arc. No problems. I love like characters like Sandman. Peter Parker fights the Sandman. What's his name? Flint Marko. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad, sometimes he joins the Avengers, he's back to bed. But he hasn't really crossed the line, as far as I know. I'm sure somebody can find a story, but like he's not a genocidal maniac. He's not like a serial cannibal or anything like that. Like he's a bank robber. With I want to do good, but I fail. I want to do like I have a bad guy character, the heavy hitter, based on the personality of Flint Marko. I really, really like that character. He tries to do good, but he fails. He has these lofty aspirations, but he just does the easiest route to get there. I love that. It's cool. Hawkeye started out as a bad guy, became a good guy. The Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, we got no problems with that. They earned their redemption, and they were never that bad to begin with. But some bad guys, Dr. Doom, Red Skull, White Queen, Sebastian Shaw, they're not coming back. And if they do come back, they got to earn it. Did Emma Frost spend time in jail? Did she do 20 years hard time? I have a story. It was planned for Patriarch number 2, but I'm bumping it to Patriarch number 3 because I have another story that I think just my gut tells me that this story should be first. It involves a villain that did their time. Don't do the and Ron, speaking of Brittany's husband, drew the cover for it. It's so funny because he just said, I want to draw something for you, and he said it. Ron is like, I'm out, but I'm back. I'm out, but I'm back. So he drew a story for me, and then he just said, I'm itching to draw something. I'm going to draw the Patriarch and Raven fighting. I was like, that's funny because that's going to be Patriarch number 2, and he drew it for me, gifted it to me, and now it's going to be the variant cover because Renzo's drawing that story, so Ron's going to be the variant cover. But I bumped it to issue number 3 because I got to tell another. But it's just funny that Ron is like, I'm done, and then because of that, I was like, dude, you got to draw one more story, and then I pulled him back in for the 3rd Raven story. Where are we? Gordon's laughing at my Xavier Cugat. I'll fight. I lift weights big time. Big time. I've always wanted to come up with a supervillain named Big Time, but I just got a name, and I don't know what powers he would have. Is he a fat guy who time travels and gets stuck in the time stream? Big Time. I want Emma to do nasty things and go down in the end, but there is no end. Yeah, I know. That again, that is the biggest difference between manga and comics, is the illusion of change. Manga has real change and endpoints. Gordon fights like Scott Summers from afar. Yes, he's got looks that kill. So there you go. This is a fun story. I could tell that this is just an amazing near perfection comic. Maybe even perfect. Maybe this is one of the few perfect comics. Just firing on all cylinders. It's just so freaking good. And I can tell because the chat is engaged. People talking about it. I hope people watch this in the future. Comment. For those of you watching in the future, let me know. Am I right? Am I wrong? Yeah. I just love this. It's so good. So good. Look, he's just dropping Storm like a ragdoll. And I love the word balloon. She's the last one. The Hellfire Club has defeated the X-Men. So good. Anything? All right. I'll tell people my schedule for the week, and if the comments die, it's over. So let's see. What's my schedule for the week as far as my YouTube channel? All right. So Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mike S. Miller will be on. We'll be talking about his comic. Oh, we'll be talking about all his comics. Probably, he's here promoting Afar. Wednesday is tax day. Dun dun dun. And we will be RJ and I at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll do comic book team up. RJ always picks the topic, and so I don't know what it is until about 10 minutes before we go live. Thursday at 7 p.m. Infinite Entertainment. He was on a couple weeks ago, and we barely even promoted his comic. We just had such a great talk. It was a lot of fun. Friday, it's clobbering time. We're going to talk about Indiana Jones versus what's the name of the character? It's King Solomon's Mines. Oh, why can't I think of the name of the character? It'll come to me as soon as I turn off the camera. But it's Indiana Jones versus Alan Quartermain. Saturday is Avengers Assembly. Keep in mind, overtime's probably going to start. Maybe Saturdays, maybe Sundays. If that's the case, I will be streaming at 7 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. I'll let you know. And then Sunday is back to its club. Sunday Comics. We'll do 133. I got this big teetering pile of comics. I need to do a comics. Monday I can't because I have friends over. We play board games. So I might just go live later on tonight and do another stream. It's a gateway issue. I don't know if a gateway issue is usually like the beginning of something, and this is just full of lore, but they do a good job of bringing you up to speed. It's so good. I can't stop commenting I could stop commenting if you want to go eat some pizza or something. I'm fine. I just, nobody clicks on a 4-hour stream contrary to what other people believe. Like I'm, maybe, I mean, if you're a big fan of the channel, and thank you if you are, so my subscribers, maybe they do, but I'm talking about like casual viewers. They're like, oh, he's X-Men. Oh, it's 4 hours. I ain't watching that. So I try to keep, so if we're just going to have like stay on for the sake of staying on, I'd rather turn off. Man, I already got my tax. You get refunds? I haven't got refunds in years. I'm always paying something. Robbing people. And it just drives me nuts because my money that I'm paying is going towards the Hellfire Club. It's going to corruption. And we got jackasses like Bernie Sanders. We got to raise taxes on the. How about you stop the corruption? Stop the corruption. I'm not going to put money into a bucket. I'm not going to pour water into a bucket when there's holes in the bucket. The problem is you're not putting enough water in this bucket. How about you fix the freaking bucket? How about nobody puts water in the bucket until you fix the freaking bucket? I just got mad about taxes. Yep. So, you know what? Looks like comments are winding down. People seem to be leaving. So, you know what? We'll end here. And maybe later on tonight, I'm going to stream again. And I'm going to, I got this huge teetering part. They're starting to fall. When I put a new comic on it, I have to precariously balance it. And I can't put comic books away until I do a video about what you're reading, So there you go. On that note, it's time to say goodbye, kids.